In 2010, Gary Coleman suffered a seizure and fell down a set of stairs, hitting his head at the bottom. He never regained consciousness. His ex-wife pulled the plug in the hospital the next day. Many believe she was only trying to get his money, but the truth might be even more heartbreaking. Gary Coleman was a breakout child star of the 1970s and became emblematic of American pop culture in the decades thereafter. But behind his lovable sitcom persona, Coleman's life was a constant battle with illness and pain, both physical and mental. Gary Coleman was born on February 8, 1968, in Zion, Illinois. At 4 days old, he was adopted by Willie and Sue Coleman. Gary never met his biological parents and never hinted as to whether he desired to do so. If he struggled with this fact, it was nothing compared to his health struggles. At 18 months of age, doctors informed Coleman's adopted parents that their son had been born with an atrophied kidney. To make matters worse, the other kidney would soon fail too. This kidney disease would set Coleman up for a lifetime of health problems. His physical appearance suffered the effects too. The illness, but also the medications that the doctors used to treat it, would end up stunting Coleman's growth. He stopped growing in his adolescence and remained 4'8" for the rest of his life. But his height wasn't the only thing affected. Gary Coleman's growth was not the only thing limited by his illness. It also affected his physical development. Indeed, well into adulthood, Coleman's appearance remained childlike. Though he suffered immensely from his illness, the effects may have also enabled his career to come. Despite his health struggles, Coleman was a charming and precious child, and in 1974, he began acting in commercials. His resume soon included an impressive list of brands, including Hallmark and McDonald's.
Each time you visit McDonald's, you can get 1 set of 4 McFavorite Clown Valentines. 3 sets to collect.
But the young actor was best known for his first job, an ad for Harris Bank. Coleman's line,
"You should have a Hubert doll,"
quickly blew up. His star would only rise from there. In 1977, Coleman got a role in a pilot for a revival of The Little Rascals. While the series did not end up with a full order, the network was impressed with the young actor's talents, and producers longed to get him on TV. Coleman's life was about to change forever. The following year, in 1978, Coleman snagged the role of Arnold Jackson in Different Strokes. He played one of 2 brothers from Harlem adopted by a wealthy widower. The starring role played into Coleman's talents, as the character, like the young actor portraying him, was precious, mischievous, and witty. Audiences went wild. Different Strokes became an instant hit, with a catchy theme song written and performed by Alan Thicke, solid performances from the cast, and the show's focus on tackling complex issues such as racism and addiction. It instantly hooked American viewers. The sitcom would last 8 seasons in total. Coleman's star soared, but he didn't yet realize what he was getting himself into. Coleman became an overnight sensation. Audiences responded positively to his performance, comedic timing, and adorable charm.
"Hey, I'm 8 years old. I don't kiss unless it's serious."
But one aspect of his character became immortalized in pop culture history forever. Coleman's character became known more than anything for his signature catchphrase, often uttered in response to baffling statements by his on-screen brother.
"What you talking about, Willis?"
The phrase cemented itself in pop culture, and in 2006 made a list of the 100 greatest TV quotes and catchphrases. And this wasn't the only recognition Coleman received. Critics lauded Coleman's performance, and he received many award nominations, an accomplished feat for someone so young. Among his accolades included 5 Young Artist Award nominations, of which he won 2, and 4 consecutive People's Choice Awards for Favorite Young TV Performer from 1980 to 1983. Coleman quickly became one of the most influential child actors in show business, and his paycheck reflected it. He set another record achievement too. He became the highest paid child actor on television during the late 70s and 80s. At the height of his fame, he received a staggering $100,000 per episode of Different Strokes. But despite this, his career took its toll in other ways. Though well-paid and widely adored, Coleman's life on set was anything but easy. Despite his young age and his debilitating health issues, the studio forced the young actor to work long hours, rarely getting any time off. The physical toll this took was clear, but the mental cost was even more insidious. Coleman's co-star, Todd Bridges, later wrote in his autobiography, Killing Willis, that the workload was too much for his on-screen brother. Coleman began to struggle with depression, and rather than seeking help, instead opted to isolate himself from the rest of the cast. He never spoke publicly about these struggles, which may have led to trouble further down the line. But for now, his career roared ahead. Riding his stardom from different strokes, Coleman became a staple guest on many of the popular sitcoms of the era. Among the shows he appeared on were The Jeffersons, Good Times, and The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
You hear the wailing of the dead.
What you talking about, Will?
With fame soaring, there was only one logical place for him to go: film. Though Coleman had appeared in a few TV movies, he made his feature film debut in 1981's On the Right Track. According to Coleman's mother, the film was actually written years earlier. However, due to the young star's name recognition, it was rewritten for Gary. Showing the pull he now had in Hollywood, he explored other media too. The world simply could not get enough of Gary Coleman. The year after his debut film, he got his own Saturday morning cartoon, and to capitalize on his fame, they named the series The Gary Coleman Show, despite the fact that Coleman was playing a character named Andy LeBeau. But after almost a decade of non-stop work, it was time for a break. After Different Strokes finally ended its wildly successful run in 1987, Coleman was exhausted. He consciously decided to take a long hiatus from any starring roles. Little did he realize his career would look very different from then on. During his hiatus, Coleman only appeared on camera to capitalize on his name recognition. The majority of his appearances over the next decade were one-off performances where he either played himself or reprised his role as Arnold in other shows and movies.
What you talking about, Mo? What you talking about, everyone?
But when his on-camera roles lagged, he dipped into other media. In 1997, Coleman decided to take a role voice acting a character in a video game. He became one of the first major mainstream actors to lend his voice to the burgeoning medium, immortalizing him as an early innovator. The game, The Curse of Monkey Island, received critical acclaim and has since achieved legendary status. So did Coleman's character, Kenny Foulmouth.
Well, the amount in your treasure hold is not enough for this model. Not even if I take your old cannon and get...
We're not sure how much of a gamer Coleman himself was, but he had other interesting hobbies. Coleman became obsessed with trains at a young age. He carried it with him into adulthood. He was an avid fan and hobbyist, building model railroads and trains in his spare time. Such was his enthusiasm for the hobby that during his hiatus, he took a part-time job in a hobby store just to be around model trains. It was a welcome distraction from his faltering career and his worsening ailments. To address his ongoing health issues, Coleman twice underwent kidney transplant surgery, once in 1973 and again in 1984. However, both transplants were unsuccessful, and Coleman thereafter required regular kidney dialysis. Unfortunately, his struggles would only continue. Though he made a lot of money on TV as a child, Coleman's young age and naivety left him ripe for exploitation. After having to pay his business advisors, his lawyers, his taxes, and even his own parents, a Biography Channel documentary estimated that Coleman only had a quarter of his Different Strokes earnings left for himself. He needed to take action. Coleman quickly realized that those who claimed to have his best interest at heart had, in reality, screwed him over. Feeling his trust fund had been misappropriated, the actor decided to sue his adoptive parents and his former business advisor to the tune of $3.8 million. He got his day in court. Though the lawsuit took 4 years to resolve, the judge in the case eventually ruled in Coleman's favor. However, he only received a payout of around $1.3 million, a fraction of the amount he sued for. Still, Coleman released a statement claiming he was pleased with the judgment, but this would not be the end of his problems. It didn't take long to prove he wasn't the best person to manage his own money either. Coleman gained a reputation for his big spending to meet what he called lifestyle requirements. However, not everything he purchased seemed to fit this category. He lost $200,000 in 1995 when an arcade that he had purchased, named the Gary Coleman Game Parlor, went belly up. The bad financial decision led to disaster. Coleman filed for bankruptcy in August of 1999. Though he blamed his many exploiters, the actor seemed to recognize the responsibility he held too. When asked who was responsible for his financial ruin, he accused everyone, from me to accountants, to my adoptive parents, to agents, to lawyers, and back to me again. Desperate times called for desperate measures. On top of all his other financial woes, Coleman also had medical bills piling up due to his poor health. In 1999, he set up an online auction to sell his furniture and memorabilia. Illustrating his desperation, he titled the event "Save Me," but with the turn of the millennium, Coleman's odd choices continued. Following the 2003 announcement of a California election, Coleman thought he saw a new path forward. He decided to run for governor. The Easy Bay Express, a free newspaper, sponsored his campaign in a move that seemed more satirical than serious. Ultimately, Coleman endorsed eventual winner and fellow actor Arnold Schwarzenegger, though Coleman himself placed 8th in the race with over 14,000 votes. Politics may not have been a good idea anyways, considering his mental health. Coleman's mounting troubles began to prove too much for the actor. Rumors began to circulate that he was dealing with crippling depression and was self-medicating with illicit substances. Hitting rock bottom once would have been enough, but Coleman hit it twice. During a television interview, Coleman revealed that he had made 2 desperate attempts on his own life. Both times, he tried to OD on prescription medications. Just as his life was spiraling beyond salvation, Coleman met someone who seemed, at first, to be the answer to his loneliness. In 2007, Coleman was working on a film called Church Ball when he struck up a conversation with an extra. Her name was Shannon Price, and she was only 22 years old, 17 years younger than Coleman. That didn't faze either of them, though, and they were married within months of meeting. This would end up being the first in a new string of controversies. In 2008, Coleman once again made headlines after a heated, public argument caused him to lash out. After 24-year-old Colt Rushton photographed Coleman outside a bowling alley without his permission, the actor got into a shouting match with the young man. And yet again, he snapped. Coleman proceeded to back his truck into Rushton, injuring his knee. Coleman was fined only $100 for the incident, but a civil suit settled with Rushton for an undisclosed amount. Meanwhile, his quick marriage was unsurprisingly on the rocks. In May 2008, Coleman and Price appeared on the TV show Divorce Court.
We want to stop the ugly ones
I'd
a month.
like to stop it because I'm 40 years old and I can't do this for another 30 years.
The episode saw the couple airing their differences in a very public way in order to try and save their marriage. Perhaps the decision to appear was because Coleman felt at home on TV, but their short marriage was ultimately beyond saving. Coleman and Price divorced in August 2008 after only about a year of marriage. The split appeared to be anything but amicable as, shortly after, Coleman applied for a restraining order against Price to prevent her from living in his home while he was briefly hospitalized. But when the salacious details of their marriage came out, they may have justified Coleman's actions. In a later court case, witness testimony revealed the sorry state of Coleman's marriage. His wife allegedly had multiple love affairs with other men, including one that seemed to be a long-term relationship concurrent with her marriage to Coleman. But the humiliation didn't end there. Further testimony revealed that Price was abusive to Coleman during their marriage. Witnesses claim she physically harmed him in public, led him around by the hand like a child, and generally seemed to lack any affection towards him at all. It is worth noting that counter-testimony claimed Coleman was no angel himself, but Price certainly didn't make his life easier as he entered his final years. Gary Coleman's cursed love life only continued to worsen following his divorce. In 2009, he underwent heart surgery. As if that wasn't bad enough, his recovery was further complicated when he developed pneumonia. It wouldn't be long before he saw a hospital once again. In 2010, Coleman once again added to his list of ailments. On top of growth, kidney, and heart problems, he began to experience regular seizures, after some of which he had to be hospitalized yet again. Sadly, these seizures would spell the end for the long-suffering actor. On May 26, 2010, Coleman was in his home in Utah when he experienced another seizure. Tragically, he was on or near a staircase at the time, and the seizure resulted in his falling down the stairs and hitting his head. He was rushed to hospital with internal bleeding, but his condition only worsened. Coleman's condition was critical, and by the next afternoon, May 27th, he was on life support. After only a day of unconsciousness, Shannon Price, who later claimed in court that she and Coleman were still in common law partnership, opted to pull the plug on her ex-husband's life support. Gary Coleman passed at 12 p.m. on May 28, 2010, following a brain hemorrhage. After a troubled life of overwork, financial strife, substance misuse, and mental struggle, the tragic figure passed at the painfully young age of only 42. But the pain was not over yet for his surviving family. Coleman was scheduled to be laid to rest the weekend following his passing. However, the funeral was canceled after the emergence of a dispute over his estate between his adoptive parents, his business associates, and his ex-wife. The executor of his estate, originally using a 1999 will, stepped aside after the original testament was found to have been superseded by a 2005 will. Perhaps reflecting Coleman's deep depression and dissatisfaction with his life, the new will stated that there will be no funeral service, wake, or other ceremony memorializing my passing. But the drama of Coleman's demise was not yet finished. Questions were soon raised over whether his ex-wife had been legally authorized to discontinue Coleman's life support. Many tabloids began to accuse Price of orchestrating Coleman's demise for her own benefit. Indeed, the evidence against her was mounting.
Pushed him down the stairs. How does that feel?
It's obviously horrible. I did not hurt him. I have nothing to hide.
Adding to the accusations, Coleman's ex-wife made a legal claim that she had remained his common-law wife and therefore was entitled to his estate monies. She sought to have her assertion validated by the courts to make her Coleman's lawful heir. After a troubled life, perhaps Coleman's consolation came after death. During the lengthy court proceedings, evidence released painted the not-so-rosy picture of Coleman's and Price's marriage. Taking these facts into account, the judge in the case ultimately ruled their relationship at the time of his passing did not meet Utah's standard for common law marriage. Coleman's entire estate was instead awarded to his business associate, Anna Gray. Price didn't lose everything, however.
For exclusive perks like early access to new videos, priority replies to your comments, and to have your say on future content, consider becoming a Factinate member. On top of that, your support helps keep the channel going. Click the link in the description for more details.
Though we may never know her true intentions behind ending Gary Coleman's life support, Price was legally accountable for Coleman's passing after all. The hospital where Coleman spent his final days issued a statement confirming that he had indeed completed an advance health care directive that permitted Price to make medical decisions on his behalf. Perhaps, depressingly, Coleman felt that, after a life spent in agonizing pain, both emotional and physical, Price would indeed be the only one who would set him free. Coleman's serious financial troubles began to become crippling in the 1990s. He famously had to take a job as a security guard at a mall. It's doubtful he was happy about it, and it led to probably the most infamous moment in his entire career.
But security guards don't let him, and one of the security guards is Gary Coleman.
While working in a California mall, Coleman was approached by Tracy Fields, a bus driver and apparently huge fan of Coleman's work. Fields asked Coleman for an autograph, but he was not in the mood and refused. That should have been the end of it, but it only escalated from there. An argument followed where Fields mocked Coleman's seemingly failing career. Coleman had had enough. In a rage, he repeatedly struck Fields in front of several witnesses, and he would pay a high price. Coleman faced charges of assault and disturbing the peace. He defended himself in court, alleging that Fields had threatened him. However, the judge sentenced him to a suspended jail sentence. In addition, the court ordered him to take anger management classes and to pay Fields' hospital bill. It was a financial hit that he did not need. If you enjoyed this Factinate video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more incredible stories. Want to say in who we cover next? Join our membership program through the link in the description for exclusive perks. Your support means everything to us. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.